I'm Paul Ben, your host for the day. As you can hear, I'm not Kiwi, I'm South African, and I'm part of the board here. So just we'll start by introducing who our board is. So we've got Phil Cregan, who's the current president of the IIBA. He leads our chapter. He's keen to support members in developing their skill sets, knowledge, and in gaining their certification. He has over 20 years experience in IT, and he has got his CBAP, so he comes with a wealth of knowledge. Next, we've got Graham. Graham also has plenty of years experience in the IT industry. He is part of our certification initiative, so he heads up that role, and his passions are encouragement and facilitation of BA studying for accreditation. And on that note, he actually heads up our study group as well, and you'll hear more about that from him later. Then we've got Deirdre. Deirdre leads our Christchurch chapter, or sub-chapter you can call it. She's also an EEP, endorsed education provider of Angora Insights, that provides training and mentoring in business architecture and business analysis. And she's here to just give it a different perspective from that side as well. She's also a certified business architect besides having her CBAP as well. So again, some more wealth of experience coming through the last two guys as well. And then we've got Ryan. Ryan, he heads up our membership for the IIBA. He will also be talking a little bit later, just briefly about membership, and I encourage all of you to get involved in being a member of the IIBA, because there are a lot of benefits which he will talk it through with you. He works as an Agile business analyst for NZ Post. He's got his Agile certification and his CCBA, and he's a trustee of a charitable trust, so he knows all about volunteering. And on that note, if you want to volunteer, please sign up. There's always room for more people to help us in the IIBA to get a lot of things done. And then, of course, yours truly, me, Paul Ben. I've got my Agile certification. I head up the membership, not membership, that should be marketing. Sorry, that's the area of my part. Marketing and communication portfolio. Got 25 experience in IT and business analysis. And I'm currently doing my CBAP. I should be writing in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, I'm almost there. So I'll give some of my insights where I can on that. So before we continue, just want to open up to Phil, our president, just to give us a few words before we get into the thick of things. Thanks. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Paul. Just want to say a massive thank you to Paul. Paul's been the first to kind of kick off these pan-New Zealand events. Normally, these would normally be the meetups that we would normally run in places like Christchurch, Wellington, and Auckland. And this is one of the, not the benefits, because I don't want to talk about COVID-19 as a horrible thing, even though it is a horrible thing. But it's one of the sort of side benefits of that has been pushing us onto an online medium and reaching out to far more people across New Zealand. So we really see this as something that we've been trying to do for a long time anyway. So it's really been a sort of a kick for us to kind of go in that direction anyway. I also just want to say that if you want to get in touch with any of us at any point, you can. If you go to our website, which is newzealand.iiba.org, and you click on About Us, there's you can contact any of us on the board individually, so marketing, myself, if you want to ask a question. We're all approachable. We're all we respond to these emails generally within about a day, so we really encourage and advise you to do that. If you've got new ideas that you want to pass forward, new events that you'd like us to run, then please get in touch with us, because it really helps us kind of shape these events for the future. Yeah, and that's all I really want to say. Back over to you, Paul.
Right, thanks, Phil. Just on that website, towards the end of the slide deck, I will show the website, so don't worry if you missed it. You'll get another chance to write down. So let's just go through what we're going to be covering today, just quickly, so you've got a good idea. So we're going to look at some membership, and Ryan's going to come up shortly and talk to us about membership. And then we're going to have an overview of the certification and study groups, where Graham will talk us through some of the basics of certification and study groups. And then we'll move into question time. That's where, if I can ask you, type a question into the chat line. There are over 70 of us in this room at the moment, so it would be best if you just type a question and I will field them out to the panel. And then we'll just close up with some just advertising of our website and our email addresses and so on. So Ryan, over to you.
Sure thing. Would you mind just to go to the next slide for me? So first of all, thank you for coming to today's session. As Paul said, I'm Ryan. I'm the new VP membership of IIBA New Zealand chapter. I used to be a event organizer, a volunteer based in Auckland. I've been doing that for like 2 years. Then I just moved on to the VP role earlier this year. So before I talk about the benefits of being an IIBA member, I just want to give, especially for the people, if you don't know much about IIBA, just a quick glance of what the IIBA is. So IIBA is based in Canada, has been around for more than a decade. So the mission is basically to be a organization that helps to establish the global business analysis standard and also the business change standard. So IIBA doesn't just basically help business analysts, but also help help the people actually working as product owners, scrum masters, or change managers. So it's not just for the BAs. And at the moment, we have IIBA has about over 29,000 members globally, and there are over 120 chapters globally. So we are the New Zealand chapter. There are a chapter in Australia, chapter in Canada, in South Africa, in USA, and we have more than 300 corporate members. So it's pretty much a fast-growing organization in that sense. So so there are a number of benefits once you become a member of IIBA. As I mentioned, because the organization is always there to try to establish the best practice and standard for business practitioners. So once you become a member, you kind of like you join this practice of establishing a standard of doing business analysis. As we know, we're in a fast-changing world. The artifacts the BA ask, or the other business analysis practitioners are asked to look at, become more and more complex. So it's important to apply some kind of standard. So the IIBA is definitely there to help you. So I would say that's the biggest benefit to become a member of IIBA. Then there are a number of tangible benefits if you become a member. For instance, once you become a member, you straight away you will have the access to BIBOK, which is the business analysis body of knowledge, and Agile extension. They are the core materials published by IIBA. So BIBOKs talk about the basically all the standard, the knowledge areas, all the business analysis practitioners should be familiar with, all the techniques people can use. And Agile extension is pretty much, as what the name suggested, is an extension of BIBOK to apply, basically to illustrate the best practice to applying the knowledge described in BIBOK in the Agile world. Then once you become a member, you will have access to a annual IIBA salary survey. As you can see, a little picture here. So the salary survey basically gives you a great insight of basically, what the basic career opportunity look like in different sectors. As a business analysis practitioner, what's the trend? What the employers look at? So that's very, very important. We all know some recruiters come out with different salary survey, but this one is produced by IIBA, and the data is from actually the member of IIBA, so it's firsthand. Another good thing is once you become a member of IIBA, you get access to a digital online library. From top of my head, I think there are about 11,000 publications you can get from the library. So the from basically the techniques people can apply, or to the basically some publication made by the BA mentors. So it's something really, really good. And also the members will get a monthly publication. It's called the BA Links magazine. Over there, it's all about career progression. It's about how to about the insight of the opportunities. And so as again monthly, I think last month we talked about the last month's publication. I talked about at the moment a lot of BA actually in the transition into the product owner role in that capacity. So there are some good articles about how to transform yourself from the BA to a successful product owner. Then you will get some exclusive career action guide to say again from the BA how you grow your career. Can you be how can you be a Scrum Master, for instance? How can you be a product owner, or how can you be even like a product manager, that kind of sense. Then you will get a member-only webinar and articles. So you don't have to be a member to get a lot of material from IIBA, but there are exclusive webinars and articles like white papers. They only offer to the members. In terms of the articles, my favorite is basically the articles around how the BAs can continue doing business analysis in the world actually pursuing AI and machine learning. I found it's very interesting. It's a lot of a good insight in the article. So once you become a member, you will get such articles constantly. Then another good thing is a self-assessment tool. It's basically to help you to assess yourself, because IIBA have this competency-based rating model, so you can help yourself to understand where I am in terms of my BA career. So that's only open for the members. And then obviously you will get some really decent discount on doing certification. It's up to 40%. There are just some of the benefits you can get from IIBA Global once you become a member, and I've included a URL there. You can go to the website and have a look yourself. Thank you, Paul. So the last slides I just quickly talked about some benefits IIBA Global offers. So once you become a member, then there are some things also offered by the New Zealand chapter. That's pretty much, I think some of you guys might actually been to some of the meetups. Again, not all the meetups kind of like only offered to the members. We do have meetups offered to the publics, but on the other hand, we have actually member-only meetups. So in those meetups, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that our local business analysis community is always on top of basically what's going on in the BA world, and also we give the community the chance to meet our the leading local practitioners here in New Zealand. Obviously, IIBA is global, but they're based in North America. So there are some little differences about the things hot over there in North Hemisphere and the things popular here in New Zealand. So what IIBA chapters offer to the members is really to fill that little gap, to say, yep, there are things quite popular in Canada and USA, but in the meantime, they are the things really, really hot right now in New Zealand or even Australia. Then obviously, you come to the meetup, you will get a chance to meet the friend members of our local BA community. I certainly made quite a few friends, just by going to those meetups. And also, Phil mentioned a bit about virtual gathering, because what's happening right now, we are still moving a lot of meetups to the virtual space. I think just because some of the constraints of the technology, we may actually start with some member-only things first to see how that goes. Then obviously, another thing we're trying to do right now is we are trying to come out with a certification study group. I'm pretty sure Graham will talk about this one a little later. So at least part of the study group will be offered to the members only. We may start with basically to say we can offer the things we look at to see if we can offer the things to the wider group, but only part of it we will only offer to the members only. So there are definitely some benefits the chapter can offer to the members.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Thank you for that. Ryan, there's been a question around what is the cost to be a member. I'm going to move on to Graham's one because we pressed for time. But when we get to question time, I'm going to come back to you so you can answer that question.
Sure. Thank you.
Graham, over to you.
Thank you. That was a very nice segue into study groups. One of the things I'd just like to reinforce is that the benefit of certification is absolute, the ability to demonstrate to future employers or even your current employer the commitment that you have to business analysis as a practice within your work environment. And for things like keeping current with thinking and looking at how the process has changed. And certainly we're seeing significant shifts, and that's been mentioned in terms of machine learning and artificial intelligence, which will come into application development as well. So I guess the certification study groups, first of all, it's really interesting having 77 people attached to my living room. And I think this is the new normal as we're moving forward. Now, we had already been looking at the approach to doing virtual study groups, because what we have found in the past is the challenge is getting enough people in one place for a group of facilitators to provide a good service to people. And so we'd already started looking at the concept of virtual study groups, which breaks down that whole geographic and time barrier that we face in our day-to-day lives. So this is an ideal opportunity for us to put this into practice. So just a bit of background about the study groups. Study groups are not there to actually train you to be a BA. They're designed to support sitting the IIBA certification exams. And to that end, we work alongside other providers and courses. And you will need some of that training time to actually fill out your hours that you need for both training and experience for the different levels. So look on the study group as a way of encouraging and motivating yourself to actually get to the exam. The other key point is that these groups are facilitated by certified IIBA members and are there to actually share their experience. So you're not just getting the BABOK material or being whatever stream of study you're following, but you're also getting relatively current experience from people that have gone through the process of sitting the exams, the type of questions that you will meet in the exams, and just some of the pitfalls and the way of answering things. So the benefit in the study group is preparing you for the exam. It's not going to train you in absolute detail on the BABOK, although given that all the question material is around BABOK, you will be expected to know that well. But it's up to you to bring your experience to the group, to share your experiences, to put things in context. And the facilitators are there to actually ensure that the key points are covered. So really, we're very keen to get these underway. At the moment, we're just scheduling, allocating facilitation resources, and as soon as we have that resolved, expect those people that have expressed interest in a study group, there'll be emails coming out, and they'll be based around Zoom technology at the moment is our expectation, which we are finding that that this is a powerful way of accessing and is pretty easy on bandwidth. Just reinforcing why certification. As I say, it helps put you in the structure and allows you to actually be confident when you're discussing with both business people and even your managers what the BA role is. You know, we're not the note takers in the meetings. It helps us provide a professional view of what we do. And as I say, it actually aligns us with good practice in the industry. Alongside that, IIBA in New Zealand is promoting certification to employers, so they understand where that puts people into the scheme of an organisation, so that people do understand that these different levels of qualification give you different skill sets, or demonstrate that you have actually passed both from a theoretical and from a knowledge point of view, as well as from the experience side of things. So yeah, so we just move on looking through the key points for certification. The entry level is pretty much open to most people. Note that one of the areas there is professional development, so being able to demonstrate that you have participated in some professional development. The way, because IIBA facilitators run the study group, some of those hours will also contribute to that professional development. The next level from entry level is, next slide please, Paul.
Sorry.
Is a certified competent business analyst. So again, this is just moving things along. The work experience starts kicking in, and the experience and knowledge areas. And again, one of the benefits that we have with the study groups that we provide is that the facilitators will help people complete their application forms, because it is reasonably challenging, especially when you look at work experiences over the last 7 years. I think there's not many of us necessarily that are in the same job that we were in 7 years ago. So again, we're having to go back to other employers and project managers to just confirm that they will actually act as references. And then finally, in the core business analysis certification, we have the Certified Business Analysis Professional. And again, extended experience hours, but again, reaching back over 10 years. So this is a progressive certification process, and it is possible to then, if you're moving through the certifications, that your hours will count forward. The key thing here is, again, professional development, you're looking at 35 hours. So again, the study groups are not a standalone unit that will get you to the exam. They're they complement any other courses that you do within the business analysis environment. And then, of course, on top of these more traditional certifications, we have the new Agile, we have artificial intelligence, and we have the data analysis, and what's
Agile, business data analytics, and there's a new security one as well.
Cybersecurity. Yeah. So again, all incredibly valuable, and will help your professional development and your career going forward. So really, that's it from me. Just open to questions.
Right, thanks, Graham, for that. It was a question around recertification, or do you do the exam once and do they expire? I just want to answer that quickly. Yes, they do expire, but you do a recertification process, which is not another exam you sit unless you don't meet the recertification requirement within the specified time. It's a matter of earning CDU points through webinars, through volunteer work, and for various other methods. So I thought I'd kick off first because question to one of our panel, because I see a couple of questions around PDE points and how do you earn it, what are the resources available. And I thought maybe Deirdre, being a endorsed service provider, you can help us understand what are the kind of ways that we could earn PD points for our certification.
Okay, thanks very much, Paul. All right, so I have tried to browse through a couple of these questions, but I'll just give you an overview. So typically a professional development is through hours of getting some training, attending some webinars, or looking at things like your study groups and so forth. Typically with your endorsed education providers, they take you through the BABOK guide, and that will assign the required amount of hours that you need. So in order to apply for your exam, you need to first prove that you've had professional development experience. So the easiest way to do that is to use an EEP, and there's a whole list on the IIBA website that you can go via. Otherwise, you've got to give evidence. So you've got to provide where you've gone for webinars. Are they related to the IIBA, to the BABOK guide? If you have attended any conferences that talk about, let's say, requirements and those kind of things, you have to give references. So the IIBA, when you do professional development hours, might audit you. So they might go in and say, and I've had 2 of my students been audited before. So they might then ask you, where did you get this development to go for your exams? You do have to have professional development hours for any of the applications that you do, but you can keep those hours for further exam applications. So if you decide, hey, you know, I've been in the industry for a really long time, but I only want to, I want to start with ECBA because I'm a little bit nervous about the exam, you can still use those hours to then decide to go to CBAP or any of the other ones, because that's part of your portfolio. I don't know, Paul, if that answers the question, or should I elaborate? No,
I think that's fine. Again, guys, if you want to kind of maybe get a little bit more information, you're welcome to pop any of the board, particularly Graham, because this is his portfolio, email. And you can find all our email addresses on our website, which is on your screens at this point in time. There are a couple of questions here around how do we accumulate all of these hours, working hours, and how do we manage it? How do we get to actually recording? And Phil, seeing as you've got your CBAP, I thought maybe that's something that you could answer. How did you gather all the information in order to apply for your CBAP exam?
Yes, thanks, Paul. So I took my CBAP in 2015, and I had to go. I can't remember what the requirement. I think it's 7 years, but it's basically you have to go back over 7 years, 10 years of your life, and reconnect with people that you were working with at the time. So that would generally be somebody who was in charge of you at the time. So could be generally a project manager, but where you can't always get that, or where they're not available anymore, then you use the next best thing. There's a certain amount of initiative involved in it as well. It's not really black and white. It's kind of you do your best to get to paint the best picture of what you've done over those last 7 years. The requirement is actually a lot simpler now, in the sense that you just have to provide clumps of or sort of, you know, the number of hours in terms of, I did 120 hours of this particular task of the knowledge area that I'm talking about in this particular month, for example. We had to go hour by hour before. We literally had to give them a month by month breakdown of who we worked with, what we did. It was quite onerous to do. And there was a number of ways I did that. A, I got in touch with people. B, I tried to I couldn't always remember exactly what I was doing at that point in time. So I tried to create, I tried to look at patterns of the type of work I was doing, and roughly the types of hours that I had accrued on those particular types of projects. And also I did things like I got I took a dump of hours from like SAP HR systems and things. You know, to remind me of what I was doing 5 years ago for some random thing I was doing in another place. So you have to be pragmatic about it as well. It's not, as long as you can prove that you know, as long as the person that you've contacted would vouch for you to say that you did that, then that's kind of the litmus test, really. They only audit, so back to Deirdre's point, they audit, what is it, 10%, I think, Deirdre, something like that. It's not, they don't audit everybody. So, you know, most people, you're in a sort of a holding pen for about 2 or 3 weeks or something once you've applied, and then after that point you get progressed onto the next stage.
Yeah, I did my application end of last year and I got audited. So they contacted a few of my project managers. I just wanted to add to Phil kind of the process that I went through, exactly what it's saying. It's hard to go back. So start with just listing your projects that you've worked on, and then work your way down until you get down to the nitty-gritty of the detail. The other thing just to remember is that you can't put 100% down for the project, because the IIBA actually says that you never work 100% of the project, because 20% of your day is really around admin tasks and things like that. So just be careful that when you put your hours in, put it at 80%. That was one of the things that tripped me up in my thing, because in my audit, because I had done that. Right, Graham, maybe he has a question for you.
Sorry, Paul.
Yes.
I just want to mention something, because part of the whole application is getting references.
Yeah.
And to get a reference, you need to be working with somebody that understands the BA role, so either as your manager or a CBAP. So somebody who has been working with you but is a certified CBAP, or one of the trainers that is a certified CBAP. So
yeah,
that's also a very important component of getting that certification.
Yeah, and they do contact the references.
Yes.
That's good. Graham, question for you. Is the Agile extension part of the examinations?
Well, there is an Agile qualification, which is it stands on its own. So the ECBA, CCBA, and CBAP are very much focused on BABOK 3. There is an Agile extension, and there is an Agile qualification which stands on its own. So it is possible just to do the Agile. And I think, Ryan, you have done that?
Yeah, I've done that. I was the first few ones in New Zealand did that. I think the certification structure, in a sense, you can imagine it's almost like a tree. So the ECBA, CCBA, and the CBAC almost like a trunk of the tree. Though you don't, I think you don't have to do ECBA first and then go CCBA or do CBAP. You don't have to do that. But in terms of structure, you can imagine they are like the trunk of the tree, and the newer certifications like Agile, like cybersecurity, and like data analytics, they almost like the branch of the tree. So the core, the knowledge area, all the BA business analysis practitioners need to be familiar with, need to be the master of. They are in the ECBA, CCBA, and the CBAP. That means as long as you do the BA in some kind of capacity, even you're a Scrum Master, even you're a product owner, they are the things you need to be familiar with. And on top of that, that's basically to say one particular direction you want to go to. That's the thing you want to actually focus on. So when you do the AAC exam, for instance, the Agile exam, there are questions task-based on BABOK. There's not saying, hey, you don't have to know anything about the BABOK. You don't need to know anything about the knowledge areas of BABOK. No, they actually touch based on the BABOK. They do have questions, a number of questions actually kind of like ask you to go back to BABOK, look at those knowledge areas.
That's good. I think a lot of the questions are around some techniques that are in the BABOK. So just to add to that question, I did my Agile certification end of last year as well. All the exams now are online, so you don't go to a testing station anymore. And just to give you kind of a bit of feel what that experience is like. So you're going to sit in a room at home or at work. You're going to make sure all pictures are off the wall. You're going to make sure all sort of anything that could look remotely like an exam crib note is packed away. You need to be alone in that room. And I think, and I'm open to correction, I think the CBAP is the only one where you're allowed paper and pen or a whiteboard in the room with you. The other exams, you have to go in with nothing. In my case, they even made me remove a coffee coaster off the table.
Paul, yes, your CBAP, they will give you a pen and paper, and possibly, it depends on where you go, a calculator.
But you're doing it online now, so you won't be getting.
So you won't, but you won't be allowed to have anything.
Okay.
You can't do this, because if you do something like this, and that guy from another side basically will friendly remind you, move your hand, don't do this, so you can't do this gesture. So if you are happy about thinking things like that, you need to do some practice, because you can't do that.
I'd just like to add as well that I've actually spoken to people at IIBA Central where they've had people that have actually gone into these moderated exams online, and their purpose has been to cheat. Okay, so they're very good at spotting cheats in exams, because they get people to pressure test their exams as well, and that's exactly. And this particular woman, she had answers under the table. She had about 8 different little tricks up her sleeve, and every single time they snuffed her out. So, you know, they're very they're really careful about the way that people take their exams. And also, if anybody has ever taken any of the CBAP or CCBA or ECBA exams back when you had to be in a room, it was a very onerous thing. Like, they used to put you in a room, they would pat you down, you had to empty your pockets, you had to hand over your cell phone. It was literally like going into Guantanamo Bay or something, the way that they used to sort of treat you. So yeah, they take it real seriously.
And when you do your online exam at home, they will actually take control of your laptop and look for any programs that are running in the background and ask you to close them. It should only be your website open. I'll answer the next question quickly. Do you have to be a member to do your certification? No. You're just going to pay more if you're not a member. Let's see, what else can we get here?
Paul, I'd just jump in. There's a couple that I made notes of.
Great, go for it, Graham.
There's one about proving hours, and it's kind of been touched on. But the reality is, and as Phil said, because you're looking back over a longer period of time, and you know, we didn't think 7 years ago that we would be needing to record time for an IIBA examination. There is a fair skill in actually filling out the form, but it can be. So anybody that can actually confirm to IIBA that you were employed there, you did work on a project, is probably a good starting point, because really IIBA do make an allowance for the fact that, you know, we don't record all our hours just to sit the exam at the end of the day.
I just want to add a note. Sorry, just want to add a note here. My name is Clifford. And just one of the things that I did as a technique that I did was I took my resume, and the resume is a good starting point, because my resume and I had multiple versions of my resume dating back to 10 years. And I went through all of those, and I kind of picked up what would I have done in each of those knowledge areas, and I recorded it on a spreadsheet. And once I was satisfied with it, I then submitted it. Now, I do have with me a spreadsheet that I use, and I'm not saying it's one of the best things in the world, but it really helped me to kind of record my hours over the last 10 years in the specific knowledge areas, and assisted me in submitting them. And I have also structured it in a way which also has who would have been my references or my project managers then, who could have vouched that the fact that I did work on those knowledge areas.
Yeah, and certainly that's, as I say, that's one of the supporting pieces that facilitators provide in the study groups, is to work through that, exactly that sort of analysis of ours. Then there was a question there, but somebody had asked about, is it possible to study privately? And yes, it is. It's quite possible to study privately and then sit the exam. I mean, some of us who are extroverts, who are suffering at the moment, being locked away, are, I personally work much better in a group scenario, and what I found was it kept me honest. Your peers are saying, well, have you booked your exam session? And it's that sort of behavior that actually helped me get my certification. So there are a number of paths open to people to achieve certification. So it really depends on your study style and how you want to work.
Graham, how big will the study groups be?
We've been talking about this with the virtual world, and we're probably looking at a study group of between 10 and 20 people maximum. The proposed, I guess, a bit of an overview of how they are expected to work. Each session is really targeting key areas of BABOK. What is expected is that all participants will contribute some sample questions, and those sample questions are reviewed in advance by the facilitators to ensure that they're the right sort of level. And then people from the group will present to the group. This is the principle where if we have to tell somebody else about something, we put the effort in to learn it ourselves. So again, this isn't a classroom where somebody will just present the information. People have to, part of the commitment for them is to participate and share their experience and knowledge with the group as well.
Right, and I assume that all the certifications will be covered in the study groups, because you're going to be looking at it from a BA BOK point of view, not from an actual certification point of view.
Yeah, so, and that's again where the facilitators can actually assist in ensuring that there's a clear level of understanding of what an ECBA level question is through to a CBAP case study approach. So again, the idea being that by aiming at the CBAP level, then people will actually, they'll still pick up knowledge at the ECBA.
Okay.
One thing we do need to just add there, Paul and Graham, is that the ECBA, CCBA and CBAP, though, are a thing in their own right. These other things, the Agile BA, the business data analytics and the cybersecurity, they're what we would refer to as specialisms. So there is no prerequisite to having to have passed either an ECBA before you do these other specialisms. You can go straight into any one of those specialisms without those other things. But in terms of core BA knowledge, that the IIBA still stand by the ECBA, CCBA and CBAP as their kind of core BA qualifications.
The main difference between the three qualifications when you come to an exam is the way the questions are asked. At the CBAP, you're going to not be asked so much to regurgitate information, but more to apply information. So depending on which certification you're doing, just keep in mind, have a look at what kind of questions they're going to be asking you, and adjust your studying according to that. And whilst we're on kind of exams, I was just thinking, all of us are working, and we also got to study this 500-odd page book. I've read it a couple of times now, and I still sometimes get confused by the language used in the BA BOK. And also the other thing as well is sometimes you read something in BA BOK and you say, well, that's not how it is in the real world. Well, the thing is, the exam is based on the BA BOK, not the real world sometimes.
Yeah.
So kind of learning for this requires developing certain habits. And I wanted to know, Ryan, you haven't spoken for a bit here. Maybe you could give us some of the habits, and then maybe Phil, you could follow up with some habits as well that youth would employ.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, the exam is against the BABOK, and for instance, I remember some of the questions that ask you, they give you a scenario. They would ask to say, hey, do you think this is going to apply to the customer or going to apply to the user, something like that? So again, the BIBOK has this definition between its own definition on the parties like a customer and the user. Sometimes this doesn't align with like a common sense, if you like, or the common understanding we have. I think that's where the study group and the EEP shine, because I mean, let's be honest, getting the knowledge is one thing, but apply the knowledge in a way that you can pass exam and get your certification. It requires techniques as well. I think that's where, because I did my CCBA just by myself. I struggled a lot because for some time I just couldn't basically sort of like to fully understand why my answer is wrong, and because I just did some online exams. What I found, the problem with online exams, they doesn't always explain to you the rationale to see why your answer is wrong and the BIBOK answer is otherwise. They don't really tell you all the time. Sometimes they tell you when it's obvious. Sometimes when you have to go through some sort of like a thinking, it doesn't tell you in that way. And I think there was Peter asked me like how long it took me to do my CCB. I mean, I took me like 6 months, but obviously just part-time. I do like a study, maybe an hour per night or 2 hours per night. But what I found is it took a lot. I kind of like waste a lot of my time because I just couldn't understand I just don't understand the rationale why BIBOK says the answer should be this, not that. I think that's where the value when you have a collaborative study group or you have a EEP, go there to give you some direction.
Right. Phil,
Yeah.
what are the kind of habits you would suggest?
I tend to agree with Ryan. I think the one thing that we haven't really kind of emphasized is when you go through an accelerator or when you go through study group, you meet a lot of people that are in the same position as you. And I think that really aids your understanding because you're dealing with like-minded people and maybe they come at the problem from a slightly different angle. The other thing is, having study cards and things are a really good way, sharing resources and sort of exam tips and questions and that type of thing. But I think the biggest benefit that I really noticed was the network that created for me. Off the back of all of that studying, this 100-odd people webinar today wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the fact that we get together around this particular problem or this particular thing, right? So I think that the networking is the best sort of non-tangible benefit that we get out of these study sessions. And I think you really leverage that when you work together. So even if we are doing these things online, we would still strongly encourage people in local areas, in Auckland, in Christchurch, wherever you might be, to meet up and actually study with each other together, because it's A, it's more fun, and B, it means that you understand the problems better.
I'd just like to quickly add there, Paul. I think it's also really important for people to understand their learning style. So if you're just reading the BIBOK guide, you potentially, if you're not a memory reader, if you're not part of the read-write profile, it can be really hard to understand the BIBOK guide. So there's different learning styles. Some people like visual learning, other people like kinesthetic, which is more your groups, like your study guides and those type of things. There are those that like audio, so want to understand the story behind what the BIBOK is and why we have it this way. So it's really important for you when you're studying to understand what your best study style is. So think back to when you were at school and you had exams. Did you just read the book and remember everything? Or did you need to go to the classroom? Or did you need to get feedback from your peers? Or did you need to do workshops and so forth? Those are things to consider.
Very good points, Deirdre. Deirdre, while she got you there, there's a question around how current must trainings be to qualify for your certification?
So with those years of professional development, you can use any time according to the requirements of the professional development that you've been given. So in other words, if you apply in and it says over the last 7 years, you can use any professional hours that you've received over those last years. So therefore, your if you are doing any courses or anything like that, they would be valid for that period of time unless the course specifies otherwise. And there's only one other requirement if the BABOC changes. So we're on version 3 at the moment. If it moves to a version 4, then that previous hours probably falls away.
Okay, so another follow-up question on that, around courses. If a course is not listed on a endorsed provider, can that be used against PD hours?
Maybe. So,
Yeah.
so you have to say exactly what the course was, when it was, who conducted it, what the course topics were, and how they link to the BABOC guide. So in which chapter did you learn that? So typically if you attend any other course, you can use it if it meets those requirements. The idea is that if the course just says we're doing, let's say we're doing a course on customer engagement, or you're doing something on stakeholder management, if they can't link it to how that fitted into the chapter of the BABOC guide, then you can't use it. But if it does, then you can.
Great. Graham, maybe this one's for you. The question is around CBAP. And as we know, CBAP are not just straightforward questions and answer. It says, which is a case study based examination? How many cases should we expect in the exam? And can you share some examples of the nature of these cases?
Yeah, just give me a couple of minutes. I think, well, you're about to sit your exam, so maybe in a couple of weeks you'll be in a really good position to answer that, Paul.
Yeah.
I think that's, so one of the benefits we have is we do have people involved with IIBA here in New Zealand that are involved in setting exam questions, and we use those people to actually review the question sets that we share with the study groups. In terms of how many case studies, I've got a dim, dark recollection of sitting my certification. Phil, can you, I mean,
yeah, so like in answer to that, you generally have, you have an extract, and then you would generally have maybe 4 or 5 questions off the back of that particular extract. Yeah. That's generally how it works. So and the extracts can be like take up a whole screen. So you have to pan down to actually get to the questions.
Yeah. But how many of them were there?
There were about 150 questions when I took it. I think it's down to 125 now.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're probably looking at around 10. I mean, and we talk case studies, they're probably more rightly described as scenarios.
Yeah.
There's about 15 scenarios, 10 to 15 scenarios in your CBAP.
Yeah.
Okay. This is coming back to references. The question is, would a reference email letter from the previous employer prove the BA experience hours? I'll answer this one. It's not an email or letter that you need to send in. When you actually register to do your exam and you make your application, it's an online application. You'll put in their name, email, phone number, and they will actually make contact with your reference to check that out. So don't worry, you don't need an email or letter. Joseph, you asked, where's this Excel template? Only one that I'm aware of is Watermark, has a free download of that Excel template. I've used their one. So that's one place that you could get it from. Let's see. Yep.
I do have a template. If anyone wants a template, I can just ping me after this and I can send to all.
Also, anyone that's done a CBAP or CCBA will generally have a template from the stuff they did as well. So
yeah,
one way or another, it just generally tends to help to talk to somebody that's done it before.
Just on free resources, Alan, he's one of the guys in Christchurch. He's done a summary of the Babok Guide on an A2. And that information is also available freely to anyone. So it's just kind of gets you to remember those different styles. So that's kind of your read-write profile.
Yeah. Just to answer, there've been a couple of questions around, is this webinar recorded? Yes, we are recording it. Phil, I think we will afterwards discuss how we'll make it available to the public. Okay, great. So let's talk about practice exams, because that's come up a few times, and it's probably been the one of the last one or two questions because we're coming to run out of time. So what is your thoughts of practice exams? Maybe each one on the panel, just briefly a sentence from each of you. What do you suggest about practice exams? Phil, we'll start with you.
I absolutely think they're essential. I think you've got to either go through an endorsed education provider or go to Watermark, go to one of the online ones. A question bank is a really useful source. You've got to get your knowledge up to a level where you're scoring, you know, above 85% before you're even in the zone to kind of think about taking the exam. So you have to bombard yourself with many different questions and many different styles, because when you get in the exam, the exams just the questions can just come at you from different angles.
Yeah.
So,
and if I can add it, it's not a case of just going and buying your bank of questions and then just answer the questions and doing the test over and over again. Have a strategy on your test. Have a strategy how you're going to learn from each attempt of doing that test. Graham, what's your suggestion about, or what's your thoughts about?
I think you've just covered it. It really is. It's about technique. Doing an online exam is different to writing something down on a paper or doing an oral. So really it's just so when you go into that exam room, you're familiar with what you're expected to do, and it lets you concentrate on getting your knowledge across rather than worrying about, well, what do I do? What do I click on now? What happens next? So the most important, I think that was probably the last 2 weeks before I sat the exam, were just all on practice sessions.
Right. Julia, what's your thoughts?
So we need to understand that the test is asking the who, when, why, and how questions. So in a test, it'll say, as a BA, you're going to be doing this. Which technique would you choose? So memorizing the Babok is not necessarily going to help you in that situation. What you need to do is you need to understand how it's structured and how do you apply those questions directly from what each of those tasks in each of those chapters is referring to. So if Babok says to you, in chapter 3, you're going to use the task interviewing, they will ask a question that will relate to that task and that particular technique. So as long as you remember who, why, what, when, and then how, and be able to rationalize through that, that'll help you with your questions. And absolutely, you have to do practice tests. It's not going to be possible without trying that first.
have you gone, Paul? Because we can't hear you. Ryan, you have a go.
Okay. I think the practice exam is more around getting you familiar with the format or the syntax of the real exam, because they're structured in the same way how the real exam question is going to be structured. But my personal experience is you will find you will feel disconnection when you, let's say the first time you go through Babok, then you start doing the text exam. The first few times you will feel a lot of disconnection between the Babok material and the question. Again, I think that's the gap where the collaborative study group or the EEP can help. Again, I always believe, learning knowledge is one thing, but to apply the knowledge to pass exam require the techniques. Also, I think if you, because what I did is I have to do test exams a few times to reach to the threshold that I feel comfortable. Then from there I start saying, I think again, I feel like it depends on who actually designed the test, design the sample questions, because you can see they have different focus as well. There's I think 8 chapters in Bad Book. They are not actually gonna test everything equally, right? I think the first knowledge area, the planning that area, from what I remember, at least for the CCBA practice exam I did, they didn't really ask that many questions. Requirement and design options, there are a lot of questions. But again, without a strategy, without someone helping to come up with a strategy, you need to spend a lot of time just by yourself to figure out which areas actually IIBA put more focus onto.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Look, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Just kind of a final word: get involved in your local chapter. The chapter's only as strong as you, the members. So we are in Wellington, Auckland, and Christchurch. There's the website address at the bottom, so you can make contact with the regional people. And then I just want to thank you to the panel. I want to thank you for taking up, giving up some time. Please get in contact with us, guys, and we look forward to the next time. We'll do another webinar. Maybe I'll go through all the questions that I've not been able to answer, and we'll either do another webinar to answer some of those questions, or we'll send out an email with a generic answer to those questions. Unfortunately, we just run out of time. Again, thank you for